Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Madison Charlton from MLC Tech, and today you join us for another episode of Intel Core Truths, where today we debunk the snake oil marketing over at Intel today. What a surprise! As Intel has appeared to pull a fast one on the benchmarks for its Xeon line of processors. So sit back and relax as we dive into the latest episode of Intel fudging its benchmark performance figures. Now, in the modern space of computing, it's not unheard of for a company to play loose with its benchmarks test results. And usually with that can be some quite embarrassing and funny fallout for the company when they get caught out. But Intel today find themselves in this very situation. Now, typically when we expect third parties to benchmark computing products, everyone assumes that all of these tests are conducted on a level playing field and the results that we are subject to have not been touched up with some form of sleight of hand or some technical trickery. But the same cannot be said of Intel this time around, with a report from SPEC, otherwise known as the Standard Performance Evaluation Corporation, has amended around 2,600 records covering the SPEC CPU 2017 results for Intel CPUs, with a note indicating that the results for Xeon processors, the older ones primarily, were invalid. An investigation stemming from SPEC internal audit had found that Intel had used custom compilers for CPUs that performed transformations with narrow applicability. This means that results were unlikely to be anything end users could have been expected to experience. And for Intel to achieve these boosted numbers, they use a custom compiler, specifically the One API DCP++/C++, which is a workload optimized specifically for the SPEC CPU 2017 benchmark, rather than the tested workloads themselves. And these benchmarks right here are the ones in question today, and to put in the simplest of terms for this benchmark, Intel cheated. And following the use of this custom compiler, it is believed that Intel could have inflated the speed uplift by 9% and around 4% for the spec rating itself. Now, it seems that the 4th gen Intel Xeon Sapphire Rapids results seem to be the ones that have been the most impacted based on several spot checks of SPEC's noted records. It noticed that the optimizations were in the 2022 compiler, but the latest version, that being the 23.2.3, where this version of the compiler, which is typically used in the latest 5th generation of Intel Xeon Emerald Rapids, it was found in this version of the compiler, the special optimizations for this very benchmark and workload was no longer found. So Intel did drop this custom compiler in 2023, but it's still important to note that this was still being used up until 2022. So the fact that Intel was getting away with using a custom compiler to fudge and increase performance benchmarks for almost 5 years is absolutely crazy to see. Now, this isn't the first time Intel has been blasted for being deceptive with its marketing, with only recently Intel coming out with its Core Truths line of slides slating AMD for its snake oil marketing, while behind the scenes Intel have been fudging the numbers themselves. So the pure hypocrisy in Intel's approach in trying to call out other people, where realistically they're the ones who are actually committing a worse sin in the industry, and that is not some weird marketing perspective and some way to measure certain graphs against competitors. They were straight up fudging the numbers for the benchmarks, so they can say, oh, look at these benchmarks, look, they're done by a third party, so we had no involvement in this. And there was no way we made the graphs and the numbers ourselves and displayed it in a deceptive way. Just look at these third-party figures. They wouldn't tell a lie, would they? Well, the fact that they use a custom compiler to synthetically boost the workload for this very benchmark just shows how deceptive that truly is. And this latest story of deception of benchmarks isn't the first time a famous tech company's integrity around benchmark results have been questioned. For example, there was a massive controversy when Nvidia allegedly performed a driver-side optimization boost to the performance of its GPUs in 3D Mark 2003. This is a controversy dating back so many years. Then 7 years later, in 2010, Nvidia accused AMD of using a different image quality setting to boost benchmark results against comparable GeForce cards. And it's also important to note that mobile chip manufacturers such as Qualcomm, Samsung and MediaTek supposedly faked Android performance benchmarks in 2020. So of course the industry is always going to be filled with these type of companies trying to deceive you in trying to make their products seem more applicable. While I am completely against deceptive marketing and trying to use clever graphs and metrics to try and make your product seem better, straight up fudging the numbers and accusing other people of straight up lying about certain numbers is the worst sin I believe in this industry as a whole. And while more work needs to be done on transparent marketing and transparent performance benchmarks, especially when these companies such as Intel, AMD, Nvidia, Apple, they use data graphs with not much context where they just say, oh, performance is this line higher, better performance, but by how much? What's those figures? What are those numbers? And sometimes the comparison in terms of increased times in performance is against a product which isn't even in the same class or fair to compare against. And while I think that is terrible, that is a different issue for today's video, but that would be a great video that I would love to cover in the near future. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions around this topic in the comments down below. What do you think of Intel being caught out fudging the numbers, and what do you think of this practice being used in the industry as a whole? Let me know all of your thoughts around this in the comments down below. Anyway, I have been Madison Charlton from MLC Tech. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked it in any way, shape or form, make sure to give this video a like and maybe subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thank you once again for watching today's video, and I hope to see you in another one soon. Goodbye for now.